Over the years, Pokémon has accumulated its fair share of burning questions and mysteries. The kind of things that everyone wants to know the answer to, but an answer just isn't in sight. These questions have befuddled the community for years, and so in today's video, I thought I would take my own personal crack at Pokemon's biggest questions and try to give you guys the best answer that I can personally give. While I won't be able to solve any of these mysteries once and for all, sadly, I've got a pretty good idea on how to at least attempt to explain a lot of these, and I think I've come up with some interesting answers. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. While Pokemon has many questions to its name that are really hard to answer, where you get your snacks from shouldn't be a question at all, and that is from today's lovely sponsor, Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. These boxes bring you treats directly from Japan every month, and they do an excellent job of allowing you to experience the best in authentic Japanese snacks. Tokyo Treat has got all the trendy modern treats, while Sakura Co. gives you a more traditional Japanese experience. The themes of this month are Spooktacular Snackin' for Tokyo Treat, which is a limited edition Halloween theme, and Ibaraki Harvest for Sakura Co. And truthfully, these are some of the best boxes that I have ever gotten from each of them. They've got sweet potato Kit Kats, which are actually really good, trust me, and need I say more than maple pumpkin bread? The Sakura Co box even comes with a cool piece of tableware each month. So if you would like to try out these awesome Japanese treats for yourself and support the channel at the same time, you can grab your very own boxes with the links in the description. And by using code HOOPS at checkout, you can get $5 off your first box of your choice. So check it out and get into the fall spirit, and a big thank you to Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co for supporting the channel and making videos like this one possible. The first question we're going to tackle today is one of the big ones, and that would be the identity of Ash Ketchum's father. The identity of Ash's dad is a mystery that has plagued Pokemon fans for decades, and despite several attempts to find the definitive answer to this question, there really hasn't been anything that has come up that has been able to explain who exactly this person is. It's a character that has really never been meant to be a part of the Pokemon anime, hence why they haven't appeared. But in terms of who they could actually be, I think the best bet to try and explain this has to come from none other than the original head writer of the Pokemon anime, the person that literally created the foundations of the Pokemon anime world as we know it, Takeshi Shudo. While the Pokemon anime in its current day and age is way different to the way it was in the original days, Takeshi Shudo is the guy that put together all of the building blocks of the anime's world, and so he's basically the authority figure when it comes to the world building of the Pokemon anime. And he actually wrote some details about Ash's father in a novelization of the Pokemon anime called Pocket Monsters the Animation. So the following words I'm going to tell you are words that directly concern Ash's dad that were directly written by the head writer himself. So it's as official of a source as you could possibly get on this topic. An excerpt from the book says, quote, "Ash's father isn't around anymore. Ash's father was a Pokemon trainer. He left town right after Ash was born and never came back. I understand how you feel. Everyone in this town becomes a Pokemon trainer when they turn 10. Your dad, your grandpa, and even you. When mentioning this father and grandfather, she, Delia, briefly treated Ash's pillow like a punching bag. Dad and Grandpa, huh? Ash recalled something from when he was 5 years old. It was the day he got his first computer. He was staring at the latest model of PC when Diglett spoke. "Hey son, I'm talking to you. Your dad and grandpa are amazing Pokemon trainers." Of course, Ash had always thought so. "Hey mom, I want to know, what's dad like? What kind of person was grandpa?" This was the answer Diglett decided to give little Ash. "Your dad and grandpa are surreal trainers who could defeat even Pallet Oak." Surreal? It was a word he wasn't familiar with. Beyond reality, super real, so they're like super awesome. But on the day he got his computer, the illusions he had about his father and grandfather were shattered, and the following occurred. Diglett lowered her head as she spoke to little Ash. "Sorry, I lied to you. Surreal trainers, beyond reality, throwing logic to the curb, super real, surpassing reality. It's all lies. I give up." When you start using your computer, you're going to go online. And of course, the internet has information regarding Pokemon, so you're going to try and learn more about your dad and grandpa. But you won't find anything, probably, because I lied. It's not a lie that dad and grandpa did try to become Pokemon trainers, that's the truth. It's an absolute fact that they left on a journey. But to say they had any success as trainers, it's a lie, probably. Your dad and grandpa had never made it into the top 10,000 lists in any of the magazines. I know that's never bothered you, Ash. The top 10,000 is made up of people who compete in the annual league tournaments. Only Pokemon Masterclass trainers make it to the big league. There's plenty of great trainers whose names never make it on the list. But it might be a problem if you search for them on the internet. On the internet, you can easily obtain a list of all the officially registered Pokemon trainers in the world. If you're officially registered, your name is on the list. Even the names of deceased trainers are listed. There's at least 1 billion names on the list. Anyway, with a computer, even with 1 billion names, it would be easy to search for your dad and grandpa on the list. That's why, before you try to search for them, I'd like to tell you, dad and grandpa aren't on the list. Because dad and grandpa aren't professionals yet. Or rather, they haven't made it to the point they can be considered professionals. "What are they doing, dad and grandpa?" Diglett shrugged. "No idea. They left to become trainers, but their names still aren't on the list. I guess they're just failures." "Failures, huh?" Ash repeated Diglett's words. Diglett didn't like the gloomy mood, hence why she then spoke up. "But you aren't a failure, Ash, so don't you worry about dad or grandpa. Whether you become a trainer or not is your own decision." This is the most comprehensive coverage and detailing of Ash's father that we currently have, and even though the anime has gone on to do a lot of different things since this was written, and things have been contradicted since that time, it doesn't change the fact that this was written by the original head writer of the anime, the person who created the very world that the Pokemon anime lives in. And so, even if there are some contradictions with the current iteration of the anime, I personally believe that the details specified in this novelization by Takeshi Shudo himself are going to be the most accurate as it pertains to the identity of Ash's father, meaning that they are most likely the closest we are ever going to get to the true identity of Ash's father and the true explanation of who he was actually supposed to be. And while this doesn't give us a specific name of who Ash's dad is, it does basically say that he, along with Ash's grandfather, were Pokemon trainers who ultimately were failures. They set out on a Pokemon journey but weren't able to amount to anything and ultimately never returned home, possibly quitting Pokemon training altogether as there is no record of them, or possibly even dying at some point along the way. It's a rather sad and unsatisfying answer, to be honest, because obviously we want to see a face, we want to hear a name when it comes to the identity of Ash's dad. But personally, I would subscribe to this as the most definitive answer that we currently have, and barring some kind of massive retcon where Ash's dad is possibly introduced later on down the line, I believe this is and is going to remain the most definitive explanation of who Ash's dad actually is. Moving along though, the next big question we are going to talk about is concerning the Lumiose Ghost Girl, and what the heck is up with that whole entire event. I don't really feel like I need to explain it at this point because you probably know what it is. In Pokemon X and Y, there's a scary girl who appears and says, "No, you're not the one," in Lumiose City, and then she disappears just as quickly, and there's no explanation given as to why this is a thing. It's a mystery that has been on Pokemon fans' minds for almost a decade at this point, and its influence still lingers in Pokemon games to this day, with the influx of other ghost girls that have continued to pop up in subsequent games after the appearance of the Lumiose Ghost Girl. So what exactly is going on with the Lumiose Ghost Girl? Is there any sort of way that we can try and find an answer? Well, like I said at the beginning of the video, definitively no. But personally, what I feel like is the most logical explanation, the most likely to actually make some sense and be what the developers were intending, is that the Lumiose Ghost Girl event, along with a lot of the other mysteries in Pokemon X and Y, were possibly meant as a setup, and were meant to be readdressed and explained/resolved in the eventual Pokemon Z. Now, obviously, Pokemon Z never happened, but what we do know now is that Pokemon Z was going to happen and was cancelled, and we know this thanks to a leak. And the other thing that that leak told us is that this Pokemon Z game, or X and Y follow-up, was actually planned to be 2 separate games instead of just 1. This makes things interesting, and given that Pokemon X and Y had just come off of the heels of Pokemon Black and White 2, which were follow-up games in and of themselves and were widely beloved by the fans due to their sequel premise, it's possible that Pokemon Z could have been looking to do something similar, and with a bit of a time skip in this game, it could have addressed the Ghost Girl event and allowed it to be resolved or explained in some way where she eventually does find the one, and maybe that one was supposed to be you in those games as the new protagonist that would be starring during this new point in time. Admittedly, the time skip part of this equation is a big if, but regardless of whether or not a time skip was the intention, I do feel like it is possible that the follow-up Kalos games that were meant to come after Pokemon X and Y were intended to resolve some of these unanswered questions from Pokemon X and Y, and were meant to make them 2-part events that started in the original releases of these games and ended in the enhanced, upgraded versions of these games. That makes a lot of sense. It sounds like something that Game Freak would do, and it would explain why all of these things, and especially the Lumiose Ghost Girl, are mysteries, because these answers that were meant to be given were ultimately cancelled and held back, never to see the light of day. The next question I am going to address is one of the age-old mysteries of the Pokemon franchise, and that is, what do Diglett and Dugtrio look like aside from just their heads? These Pokemon have been very famously hiding their true appearance since we were first introduced to them over 25 years ago, because the only thing we ever see from these Pokemon are their heads. We know that they are mole Pokemon, and according to Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, we know that they supposedly have feet, or at least Diglett does anyway, but other than that, we haven't ever actually seen with our own eyes the true form of these 2 Pokemon. However, this is a question that I cannot simply answer with words, so I have decided to commission my good friend Oscar Belmonte to help me visualize with actual artwork what the full body of these 2 Pokemon could look like, and this is what we ultimately came up with. First of all, while it is nice to imagine these Pokemon's bodies as looking really interesting under the surface, it is most likely the case that their bodies are pretty simple. Number one, because that just makes the most sense, and number two, because these are also Kanto Pokemon, which by and large have pretty simple designs. In Diglett's case, we gave it big hands for it to be able to use to dig, and a more diminutive lower body, which makes a lot of sense considering it's always hiding its lower body under the ground. It could possibly be doing this as a form of protection because its lower body is its weak point, so it only ever pops its head out from under the ground in order to get a view of its surroundings. And meanwhile, when it comes to Dugtrio, while it is literally just 3 Diglett heads, we know that it is its own Pokemon at the same time, so they have to be bound together in some way, and this is the way that we decided to do it. Ultimately, just making it a genuine 3-headed Pokemon, like Hydreigon, or similar to the way that Magneton combines 3 Magnemite. The body gets a little bit bigger, the claws for digging get a little bit bigger, and even though it does kind of have an interesting appearance with 3 heads simply slapped onto the top of a body, this is about as accurate as we can guess in terms of what Dugtrio's body really does in fact look like. They most likely are bound together in some way, and I feel like this is a pretty decent interpretation, but obviously your guess is as good as mine, so let me know what you think about these two in the comments below, and if you have any other ideas about what their full bodies could actually look like. Another big question that a lot of fans have had recently is Mega Evolution ever going to make a comeback and return in a future main series game? My personal answer to that is yes, eventually it will, but I believe it is going to come back in the form of a revisit as opposed to a reintroduction of it where it becomes a permanent thing from that point forward. I feel like it'll basically be a ceremonious type of thing where it's the big return of Mega Evolution and they revisit it for a specific game and add some new forms in this specific game, but I don't think it'll become a regular thing after that in the same way that regional variants have become a regular thing. At least not in the form of adding new Mega Evolutions in every game. I feel like it could stick around a little longer in terms of just having it there in the game, but in terms of having it and also adding new forms, I feel like that will happen again eventually, but it's going to be a thing that is only once every so often, and it's a special kind of inclusion. I feel like this will happen because Game Freak and the Pokemon Company know the demand for Mega Evolution, and that is why it has maintained a presence in the series in the form of appearing in the anime and also appearing in various spin-off games. So I think it's only a matter of time before it makes its grand return to the main series, but like I said, in a way that uses the absence of it as an advantage in order to make a grandiose return that can be more highly celebrated than simply just saying Mega Evolution's back and it's going to be back permanently. I think it's going to be the kind of thing that they use every 5 to 10 years or something like that to really cause a buzz in the community because it's that kind of fan favorite beloved thing that they kinda want to keep special. Especially because it is firmly established as a Kalos Generation 6 type of thing, and I think they want to keep it as a Kalos Gen 6 thing, and what makes Kalos and that generation special as much as they possibly can. But, as I said at the beginning of the video, these are all just my answers to these questions, and these questions remain still very much unsolved. So you guys are going to have to let me know your thoughts to my answers, as well as your own answers in the comments below, and be sure to leave the video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more if you haven't already. I would also like to mention, since we're getting closer to November, that I am running a Pokemon Scarlet and Violet giveaway, and if you would potentially like to win a free copy of the games, check out my Spotify. if we can get enough new listeners on my Pokemon remixes there by the time the games come out, I'm going to be giving away a copy of the games, and potentially we'll give away multiple copies if we get enough new listeners. It also just supports the channel immensely, so it's a win-win, so if you're able to, check it out, I would appreciate it. With that said, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'll be back very soon with another one, and until then, as always, I will smell you guys later.